This is how you make beef fat singing Hinnies with brown ale beef. That's a smart Geordie. And then the pepper as well. So a staple for any Geordie chef should be to know how to make a brown ale braised beef. So we've got some lovely beef shin from Oliver and Eden Butchers in Granger Market. You're going to need some roughly diced carrot and celery. Same with onion and garlic. A little bit of tomato puree, obviously some brown ale. You can obviously substitute that for wine if you want or something like that, but then you wouldn't be a proper Geordie. Then you're going to want a little bit of thyme and rosemary and some beef stock. So first of all, we'll go on to the beef. So you can use many cuts of beef for this. I like using a shin just because I feel you get a better texture and a better chew to it because it's got a lot of fat and a lot of collagen and things like that in there. If you can, I would aim to get chunks of whole shin like this from your butcher. Ask him to trim it for you because we'll need to trim some of the sinew off. You don't have to worry about getting every single bit of it off. Any of these harder bits of sinew and collagen that don't break down and tendons, you'll be able to pick those out at the end. And we're going to season this beef all over really nicely. We'll just put salt on now when we save it, and then we'll put the pepper in a little bit later, otherwise it'll all burn. So pan nice and hot. Nice bit of neutral oil in, like a vegetable or canola oil. And then straight in with your beef. That's looking pretty good. I always say no matter how long I'll be a chef for, I'll always enjoy turning over a seared piece of meat. There we go, get a look at that. Yeah, that's it. So we can get the beef in now. Just give this one a little bit longer. Don't forget to sear the ends off as well. Although I like this to caramelise a little bit longer, but we can start adding our vegetables to the pan. So we've got some thickly cut carrot and celery that can go in. I've made them quite thick because we're going to pick them out at the end. They're just going to flavour all the sauce that's going to be mixed through the beef. We've also got some onion. Just looking for a little bit of a golden colour on all of these. Same with the garlic. We'll get a little bit of garlic in to caramelise. So yeah, a nice bit of colour on all that veg now. Now that's perfect. Right, so we've got a nice bit of colour on our beef now. We don't actually have too much oil in the pan, so we don't need to worry about draining that. So we'll just go in with a little bit of tomato puree. Just going to add a little bit of depth and richness. You always want to cook out your tomato puree just a little bit, otherwise you get a bit of a metallic sort of flavour in the end product. I'll go in with a little bit of black pepper now. And this is how a chef opens a bottle of brown. Go straight in with the gnocchi. A little sip for Chefy as well. And the idea with any alcohol is that goes in first and you want to reduce that all the way down. Newcastle brown can be a little bit bitter, so we might need to add a little bit of sugar, but we'll see how it tastes. So any of your beef trimmings that I've just trimmed off there, all the sinew, don't throw that away. If you're going to make a lovely sauce or a gravy, you can chop all that up, caramelise it in the pan with some vegetables, put your wine in, put your stock in, strain it off, and that'll make a nice sauce. The alcohol, the brown ale, is reduced all the way down now, so you see now we've got a nice thick syrup. We've deglazed all of that lovely caramelisation from the beef and the vegetables off into the alcohol. We've burnt all the alcohol off. We've left with a lovely thick sauce. Now we're just going to add some beef stock, ideally homemade, or just buy some nice, good quality beef stock. So that can go in. And then we'll reduce that down a little bit again. So yeah, that's tasting pretty good. Little bit of bitterness from the brown ale. Sadly, I don't have any, but a big dollop of black treacle in there would go really nicely. As I don't have any treacle, I'm just going to put a little bit of ideally dark brown or light brown sugar in there. We've reduced this down a little bit now. We've checked it for seasoning. Again, make sure it's not too salty because we're going to reduce it down later. But now we can start popping all our vegetables in there. And then ideally probably just pour everything straight on the top. There we go, perfect. So just making sure now all those vegetables are nicely submerged. And now you can go in with your herbs. I'm just going to put a little bit of thyme in. And if you had some rosemary or bay leaves as well, any hard herbs like that could go in as well. So now we're going to tuck this in for bed to go in the oven for the next few hours. Good trick when you wrap anything in foil, good trick is to put a little sheet of baking parchment over the top first and tuck it in nicely. That is done for two reasons. One, it'll trap in a lot more moisture, and secondly, it'll also stop anything sticking to that foil. So foil on now, nice and tight. There we go. So I'm going to pop this in at 150 for about an hour or so just to get everything up to temperature, and then I'll turn it down to about maybe 130, 120 for the next 3-4 hours. That's the thing, cooking is fun, cleaning is not. One of my favourite pieces of kitchen equipment is this. This is a dough scraper. It's usually used on benches for when you're making dough and bread and things, but I use it for my chopping board. You can just use this scraper, get everything straight in the pan. And then you've got a perfectly clean board every time to start your next job. So a mayonnaise, I'm probably going to end up making many episodes of different types of mayonnaise because it's genuinely one of my favourite things to make and eat. But this is just going to be sort of a basic bog standard mayonnaise. I'm going to do a few little tweaks here and there that make things slightly different. I've got an outrageously large bowl here. It's the only one I have, sadly. We don't need the one this big. But all mayonnaises start with eggs. So you can either use whole eggs or egg yolks. They've got a molecule called leptin in there which helps bind the oil to any sort of water in there. So that goes in first. Then to help the emulsification process, you usually use mustard. I'm using quite a strong English mustard here because I'm doing a slightly more English dish. But usually you'd use Dijon. Don't go crazy on that. I've got about 1 egg in there and I'm talking that much, especially of this mustard, about that much. That's going to be more than enough. Then you want to have a base layer of acidity in there. Red wine, sherry vinegar, depending on the flavour profile you'd like. I'm actually going to go for a little bit of pickled onion juice here. So I'll just use a little bit of that.
Thank you very much.
Again, probably, you know, half a tablespoon per egg yolk. Then also just a tiny, tiny pinch of salt to start with. We can always add a bit more, but we can't take away. So then you can use any whisk. You can do this in a food processor, but what I find in a food processor is you need to use about 10 egg yolks to actually get the blade to catch. I think you've got a lot more control with the whisk and your hand. So basically start by giving this a good whisk. You can have a good look in there. You want to give this a good whisk for about 20 to 30 seconds. Start catching a little bit of air in there. There we go. And then now the trick is you need to pour the oil in very, very slowly as you whisk. So, trick of the trade, have a slightly damp towel, create a little ring like this. That will leave a little well for the bowl to sit in and it won't wiggle around as much. What you do have to do as well though, is I tend to hold the bowl against my belly and with the pouring hand I hold the back here and that stops it wobbling too much. Then just slowly add your oil as you whisk. Very, very slowly at the start, and as time goes on, you can start adding it a little bit faster. So it'll seem very, very loose at the start, and then it'll really start thickening up. So now you've got, the mayonnaise is nearly ready. You can take a lot of oil now. A little bit faster without it splitting. Right, there we go, that's finished now.
Thank you very much.
So that now, you've got a nice, perfect, thick mayonnaise there, you can see. So I'll put that straight in a piping bag, and then we can pipe that on the final dish. So a good trick for getting your mayonnaise into your piping bag. Turn the bag inside out. Pop it into a tea mug. I can go straight in there. There we go. And another reason I love these scrapers, because now you can scrape all that all the way down to the bottom of the bag. Give it a little swirl. And now you've got yourself a perfect little bag of mayonnaise there. Jerusalem artichokes. Incredible time of year for them. Lovely root vegetable. They just grow in the ground. They've got an amazing flavour. You can make crisps out of them. You can make crumbles out of them. You can even make desserts out of them. We'll give them a good wash. We'll peel some down, slice them on the mandolin, and then they'll go in the fryer as crisps. The other ones we won't peel. We'll dice them up and we'll caramelise them in the pan to turn them into a puree. For the puree, it's actually the skins that have a lot of the flavour, so we don't want to peel them for that. So just give these a good wash with a clean scour or a scrub. You want to get them really nice and clean. Just going to chop them up into little chunks, and then we're going to get them in a pan. Would be with butter, but we'll do with olive oil for Cal's dairy allergy today. And we're just going to really slowly caramelise them over the space of an hour or two, stirring them every now and again. And then once they're really soft and really caramelised, we'll cover them with a bit of milk or oat milk for Kyle. And then we're going to simmer them, and then we're going to blend them into a smooth puree. Nice pinch of salt. A little bit of a stir. And then we'll just leave them to slowly caramelise over the space of an hour or so. You'll start to smell it soon. When the skins on these start to really deeply caramelise, they smell incredible. So for the crisps, we're just going to peel these artichokes now. And you're only going to need 2 or 3. These really thinly sliced, you'll make loads of crisps. Then this is a mandolin, Japanese mandolin. Again, one of the most dangerous pieces of kit in the kitchen. Seen many chefs cut their fingers on this, including me. So get it to a nice thin setting. And then we just want thin little crisps. So we've got the fryer set up. I've got it at about 160. Small batches at a time, so you can keep an eye on them. Keep them moving. So yeah, they're starting to get a little bit of colour on there now, just a little bit longer. That's all the natural sugars in there starting to caramelise as all the water's evaporated. Right, so these are ready now. There we go. Same with anything that comes out the fryer. A nice little pinch of salt always helps. You know, 5 minutes when they've cooled down, they'll crisp them right up. Right, so here's just a few bits and bobs to use for garnishes for your dishes. Really easy, beautiful looking garnishing leaf is celery leaf. And just basically the heart of the celery has all these wonderful little leaves on there, so you can use those for garnishing. These silver skin onions, you can either buy them and pickle them yourself, or you can just buy them already pickled in a jar. You can just slice them up into these beautiful little petals. So these you could also blowtorch to give them a charred effect, or you can just have little bits of pickled onion sitting on top of your dish. We've also got chives, obviously some nice chopped chives, a little sprinkle of that on everything looks great. So all these chives here have just been put through the chive splitter and then into ice water. So then a few of those dotted around is always a nice garnish. And finally as well, you can just use the tips of the chives. So you can just chop the tip of the chive off like that, and then you can just spike that into your dish. And if you just do a combination of a few of these on top of a dish, it takes a while to plate, but it just elevates everything and makes the dish look amazing. Right, so singing Hinnies. Singing Hinnies are a very Geordie, savoury scone. So the reason these are called singing Hinnies is because once the scone's been made and they hit a pan, they hiss and they sing, so they get called singing Hinnies. It starts with all-purpose flour, so we'll get a load of that in there. I'm going to do this in a food processor, but you could quite easily put this in a bowl and rub it between your fingers. In here I've got salt and baking powder. So we'll just pass that through a sieve so we don't have any lumps. Now this is the infused beef fat from yesterday. So that's rendered beef fat infused with thyme, rosemary and garlic. So what I've actually got to keep it nice and cold, this in the freezer, I'm going to do 50-50 50-50 butter and 50-50 beef fat, all cubed up into nice little chunks. So in with the beef fat. Throw some butter in. Just do a little bit of thyme as well. Right, so now we're going to blend this, and what we're going to do is the butter's nice and cold, so it's going to evenly distribute and chop through the flour. There we go. So that's the consistency we're after. We're after just the butter nice and finely blended through the entire mix of flour. Right there, so now we just want to add a little bit of milk, just to help bring the dough together basically. So I've got about 10 tablespoons of milk in here now, and that should hopefully just be enough liquid to bring the mix together. I've never actually made these before. So now what we want to do is we want to get this out into a bowl, and we want to start bringing it together. Let's bring this out. We don't want to overwork it too much, but we want to make it form a nice, light, flaky dough. So this is what we're after here. You want to work with this dough quite quickly now because you don't want it to get too warm. The idea is that we're just going to roll it out quite thin. So I don't have a rolling pin, so it's another good little cowboy one to use. Just be careful you don't get any plastic in there. So we're looking for about an inch thick, half an inch thick. You can see we've still got little layers of beef fat, little layers of butter in there. So I'd probably go for about that. So we should get a few nice ones cut out there. There we go, look at that. So they have got a bit of baking powder in, so they will rise as they cook a little bit. Oops. So there we go. Another handy trick from the scraper again. There we go, so now these are ready to go into the pan. Here we have our little Hinnies, beautiful little Hinnies there. You can see dotted through with lots of lovely bits of thyme, half beef fat, half butter. So I'm very excited to actually try one of these because I've never made one. What I've got now is I've got all this delicious rendered infused beef fat. Just a nice thin layer. Get the pan up to temperature. They'll take a little while to cook through. So the idea is you want to get them in a fairly low temperature pan, just to give them a chance to caramelize on the bottom and cook through. You don't want them burnt on one side and raw in the middle. There we go. There you can probably hear a little bit of singing there.
Thank you very much.
There we go, it's perfect, that is. So you can see they've actually puffed up quite a bit there. They should be nice and light. You see how much that's making them puff up there just by basting them. Wow, look at that, they've puffed right up. So. Right, if they're not cooked in the middle, I'll be shocked. Oh, perfect, there we go. Singing Hinnies. So as you can see, the artichokes now, they're nice and sticky, really nicely caramelized all over. So what we'll do now is we'll just cover it with milk, and we'll just let that simmer for just 5 minutes, just to kind of rehydrate them, finish the cook on them, and then we'll be able to blend them nicely. So artichokes now, the milk's reduced down, we've deglazed the bottom of the pan, and we've got everything nice and soft. So let's just transfer it all to a blender now. So max blend. There we go. So now what we're going to do, you want to be really careful when you've blended something really hot like that, because it has the tendency to explode. Now, because the blender is not that good, I'm actually just going to pass it through a fine sieve here. What that's going to do is just going to remove any of the lumps and just make it a little bit smoother. Right, let's get a look at this beef. A little bit of a baste, all the sauce is looking nice. You'll be able to see how tender that is there. So take these out. we go. So I'm just going to start removing some of this harder inedible sinew from the meat as I break it down. Yeah, some of that's just not as nice to eat, so we'll just remove those a little bit. Because I've braised it as a whole piece, you've got really nice long strands of beef. And that makes such a difference when you're eating it. It feels so much nicer, like beef spaghetti. As the meat shreds in there, the meat will soak all that up. It's soaked right up.